Okay, we are live streaming. I'm going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I would like to remind council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is held electronically under Bylaw 2020-70 to amend Procedural Bylaw 2018-117 pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. And thank you, Zoom, for telling us we are being recorded. There we go.
You okay?
Okay, all good. Now, we will forgo the national anthem again due to the technical challenges of doing that on Zoom. We'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Sue, were there any additions to the agenda or amendments? Oh, Mr. Larbetsky?
Mr. Larbetsky had a change.
Yes, Mr. Larbetsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, with respect to item 12.4,
Okay,
the letter from Bradley Law, June the 8th, there is an amendment. There was an error made. It's not the bylaw that is going to be removed. It is the covenant. And I can elaborate on that once we get to that portion of the meeting. Thank you.
and council I do believe we did receive that from you via email. Okay, so that will be amended to the agenda. All right, so with that, then if there's nothing else, the recommendation is that the regular council meeting agenda for Tuesday, June 15th, 2021 be approved as amended. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest today? Councillor Bromwich.
None.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Item 7.2, I recused myself the last at the committee of council committee meeting on item number 2 of number 7 here. So I will just stop my video and mute myself during that particular reading, and I will not vote on that particular item. Would that be appropriate?
Sue, should I sever it from the rest of the minutes? It's a recommendation from council and committee meeting.
It would be easier if we just read that first portion and then we can sever that one. Yes.
Okay. So I tell you what we'll do. We'll sever recommendation number 2 from the Operations, Roads and Waste Management report from the list of recommendations in the council and committee meeting minutes. And we will address that after we address the set of minutes.
Thank you.
With a separate resolution. Sue?
Thank you.
Just advise Councillor Bromwich, I've just sent him the declaration form for him to sign and resubmit, please.
Okay.
I guess I have to do that each time, because I already done this particular item, but I'll do it again. Thank you. So would you like me to take over or would you like to have Sue just read the recommendations?
Okay. So how about you let me finish? We'll get there. We're not quite there, but we've noted it.
I'm trying to get to July here.
I know. It's already been a long day. Okay. That's fine. So I have noted that declaration, and just to double check, I know Councillor Poplinski said he didn't have one. Any others? No declarations? Okay, thank you.
None here.
Thank you very much, Council. In terms of a mayor's address, I will apologize, but due to the workload of preparing for local and county meetings this weekend, I had over 700 pages to read, and I did not have an opportunity to write a mayor's address. It's unfortunate. There were a couple things I would have liked to have spoken to, but I'm only human. And I think I read War and Peace on the weekend. So I will forego a mayor's address. Delegations and presentations, we don't have any today. So we're going to move to confirmation of the minutes. Now we do have the council and committee meeting minutes of June 1st, 2021. Gwen, if you could read the recommendations, just read through all of them, with the exception of number 2 for operations, roads and waste management. We will, now do I need a motion to sever that and deal with it separately?
No.
Okay, at county we would, so that's why I was asking. All right, but we will separate out recommendation number 2 from operations, roads and waste management, and we will address it after we address the rest of these minutes recommendations. Okay, Gwen, take it away, Gwen.
All right. That the council and committee meeting minutes for June 1st, 2021 be approved as presented with the following recommendations under operations, roads and waste management, that tender MV 2021-04 for the 3/4 ton plow and truck is awarded to Summer Brothers Motors Limited in the amount of $72,760.70, HST included, subject to requirements of the tender, and that it be applied against account 1-5-08-14-799998 equipment capital expenditure. That the illegal dumping report is received as information, and that staff is encouraged to continue using social media tools to advertise against illegal dumping. That council in committee accept the vessel operation restriction report as information, and that staff is directed to provide the following advertising based on promotional material provided by Madawaska Shoreline Association and social media and website content. That the following resolution from the Township of Arkell and West Elgin is supported in principle with revisions, and that any funding requests be directed to the provincial and federal levels of governments, not municipal governments. Whereas Phragmites osteosus, Phragmites is an invasive perennial grass that continues to cause severe damage to wetlands and beaches in areas around the Great Lakes. And whereas Phragmites osteosus grows and spreads rapidly, allowing the plant to invade new areas and grow into large monocultural stands in a short amount of time, and is, I can see why, Sue, you didn't want to read this, allelopathic plant that secretes toxins from its roots into the soil, which impede the growth of neighboring plant species, and whereas Phragmites osteosus results in loss of biodiversity and species richness, loss of habitat, changes in hydrology due to high metabolic rate, changes in nutrient cycling as it slows to decompose, and increased fire hazard due to the combustibility of its dead stalks, and can have an adverse impact on agricultural, particularly in drainage ditches. And whereas invasive Phragmites have been identified as Canada's worst invasive plant species by Agricultural and Agri-Food Canada, whereas the Ontario government has made it illegal to import, deposit, release, breed, grow, buy, sell, and lease or trade invasive Phragmites under the Invasive Species Act. And whereas volunteers, non-government organizations, and various municipalities have invested hundreds of dollars in investments and labor annually for more than 8 years in executing management plan to control invasive Phragmites on roads, shorelines, and in wetlands. And whereas roads and highways under Phragmites that are left untreated become spread vectors that continually risk new treated wetlands and shoreline areas, and eradicating Phragmites, and if possible, develop a system of grants to support the uptake of these best practices by citizens. And be it further resolved that the resolution sent to the Honorable Omar Al-Jabbar, Minister of Transportation Canada, Honorable Carolyn Mulroney, Ontario Minister of Transport James Corcoran, Honorable Ernie Hardeman, and Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Jeff Urick, MPP, and Karen Vecchio, MP, that this quote from Strongco, and number 6, that the quote from Strongco is approved as at a cost of $58,246.96 for a rebuild transmission for unit number 53 Volvo Grader, and that it is expensed from equipment capital reserve. Under operations, water and wastewater facilities, that the replacement of the diesel generator at the Township Municipal Office in the amount of $17,977 plus HST is purchased from Welk Electric, quotation number 210428 MV Township for the new 20 kilowatt propane unit, and these funds to be withdrawn from the general admin building renovation replacement reserve. Under fire and protection and emergency management, that the resolution from the municipality of Calvin in regards to fire training and equipment funded by the provincial and federal governments is supported, that the resolution from the corporation of the municipality of Calvin in regards to national 3-digit suicide and crisis hotline is supported, And under Recreation and Community Development, that the grant update is received as information and that staff is directed to proceed with the Green and Inclusive Communities Building Grant application to retrofit the Paul J. Yakubowski Community Center based on the past application and requirements, and that the Madawaska Valley Public Library Green and Inclusive Communities Building Grant application be supported using the location at the Paul J. Yakubowski Community Center for their proposed new building. That the facilities manager recreation to proceed with the maintenance of the Paul J. Yakubowski Community Center generator at a cost of approximately $27,949 is supported, and that staff proceed with the lowest bid, and that the Paul J. Yakubowski Community Center enters into an agreement with GAL Power to provide semi-annual maintenance in the amount of $2,165 per year. And number 3, that the Craft Cabin Report 2021 was accepted as presented. Under Planning Matters and Statutory Meeting, under the Planning Act, that Council provides written confirmation to the County of Renfrew Planning Department that the Township of Madawaska Valley is included in the RFP DP-2021-01 Cannabis Operations Study. And under Finance and Administration, number 1, whereas Ontario Regulation 285/04 under the Marriage Act allows municipal clerks as a class of person authorized to solemnize civil marriages and designates may be delegated the authority by the clerk in accordance with Section 228 of the Municipal Act. And whereas the authority to perform civil marriages belongs to the clerk and the responsibility remains with the clerk for all oversight, including the marriage registration book, ensuring that they are properly trained and knowledgeable of the Marriage Act and affiliated confidentialities and responsibilities. And whereas delegation of authority ends if it is withdrawn by the municipal clerk or at that time the clerk's employment ends. Be it resolved that Council supports the CAO clerk delegation of authority to Joanne Kaufman and Craig Kelly as civil marriage officiants to perform civil marriage solemnization services as allowable under Bylaw 2020-88 for the Township of Madawaska Valley, pending final approval of documents submitted. That the resolution from Perth County in regards to domestic production of vaccines is supported. Number 3, that the resolution from the Township of Bon Cher Valley in regards to reduced timelines for processing development applications is supported. And number 4, that the resolution from the Township of Bon Cher Valley in regards to farmers markets is supported.
Well done, Gwen.
Take a breather.
I think that's the most words that our deputy clerk has spoken on Zoom. Well done. Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask for a mover for those recommendations. Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Now I'll go to each of the chairs. I'll ask Chair Bromwich if he'd like to speak to the recommendations, excluding number 2 for his committee.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have much to say. I think it's fairly straightforward. Discussed this during back in council and committee. There's a few important ones here. I believe they're all fairly self-explanatory, so I'll just leave it at that. If anybody else might have a question, I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I will move on then. I'm just looking here. The recommendations from Roads and Waste Management were the longest ones. Okay, I'm going to ask Chair Schulist if he'd like to speak to the recommendations on water, wastewater, and facilities.
Yes, to you, Madam Chair. I have no problem here. It's something that we need, and we have to approve this. And so I have no concerns. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now, Chair Pawlinski, I know that you were unfortunately weren't able to attend this meeting, but I did wonder if there was anything you wanted to speak to on the 2 recommendations from Fire Protection and Emergency Management.
Thanks, Mayor Love. No, I haven't got anything further to add. I think it's very straightforward. And they're regarding the training and supporting the resolution. And of course, the other one dealing with the number for the suicide prevention hotline. I think it's self-explanatory. There's really nothing further to mention on those subjects.
Okay, thank you. Then next I'll go to Chair Wilmer and see if he is the Chair of Recreation and Community Development Committee. And is there any of the recommendations you'd like to speak to?
Mayor Love, thank you. No, I have nothing further to add. I think on June 1st, we had a long discussion on the first couple, or the first one, which is important, but we have, we are proceeding with the grant applications, and I think that's important, but I think we've had a great deal of discussion already.
Okay, thank you. As Chair of Planning Matters and the statutory meeting under the Planning Act, I did not have anything to add, or as Chair of Finance and Administration, I think the recommendations speak for themselves. So are there any of these recommendations that Council wishes to discuss? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, Mayor Love, thank you. And I didn't know where I could interject here. I was just, perhaps this is the moment, dealing with the finance and admin, and on page 4, and it's item 1, dealing with the Marriage Act regulations. I wasn't here for the meeting, and I did have a couple of questions actually with respect to what we're doing here. I see we're appointing 2 new people to perform these marriages. And I noticed that we'd have a certain amount of responsibility and could be held accountable for actions by others. And so far, I think our CAO has been active in doing this. And I'm just wondering, is there such a backlog of marriages that we need other people? And also, are we prepared to accept the responsibilities? And you know, and I have another question, and I wondered, because even when I was looking this up online, I saw where you know, there has to be registrations done. I don't know how that's done. I think it could be done online, but at one time it used to be done by paper. And I know in speaking with Silas in the past and trying to get certain things moving, there seemed to be some things along the way that he had to deal with. And often the topic came up of registration of marriages and births and deaths and so on. So I'm somewhat concerned. Are we taking on, if we have more people performing these functions, are we taking on more cost and more responsibilities for our already overburdened staff? That would be my question. And perhaps Silas, you could, he's still with us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is he? Just wondering if he could comment on that, because I'm a little concerned. I know the CAO is, from what we saw and when we were doing the review, there's many hats that she wears, and I can understand spreading some of that work around. However, if we've still got the responsibility of whoever does it, and also the cost of registering and various things, I'm not sure how that's all broken down. So perhaps Silas could comment.
Mr. Larbetsky, did you want to speak to the licensing component of marriage solemnization?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the only aspect of the marriage license itself is my responsibility when someone makes an application, and it can be within the province of Ontario. We process the application here and issue the license. The responsibility for registration lies with the officiant. It's not the municipality that registers the marriage with the province of Ontario. So that duty has been delegated to officiants to do that. There is an insert that I give to with each marriage license that specifies that whoever is officiating, whether it's within our own municipality or they're taking it to Niagara Falls, that they have to send in that license or the marriage document to the province. And then there is a requirement that within 12 weeks after the marriage takes place, the couple are supposed to submit an application to the province to see that there has been a registration that has taken effect. So from my perspective, I do not get involved with any of the ceremony aspect of it. That is what council has delegated to the CAO clerk to do, and the subsequent bylaw that was passed has taken on, I guess we now have 4 people under our jurisdiction,
Mhm.
the CAO clerk, the deputy clerk, and the 2 new people that are mentioned in the report. And that's all I can add to this. Thank you.
Okay, so licensing hasn't changed. That's still your responsibility for marriage licensing. Okay, Sue, did you want to speak to the oversight that the CAO provides
Yeah,
to this?
absolutely. I wanted to add that as it pertains to licensing, we now have 3 registered with the division registrar that can do the licensing as well, like in the absence of Silas, the deputy clerk, as well as myself, can assist in filling out the licenses. When we brought this to council, when I was first entertaining doing marriage solemnization, and we appointed myself as well as I included the deputy clerk, was deemed as a service that we weren't providing previously. It's deemed as something that had been asked for. I believe there's only 4 in our area that offer that service. People are interested in having smaller weddings and coming to touristic venues, having a wedding just in front of Crooked Slide Park, or some of our municipal parks, or something that's mentioned as well. We also looked at it as a revenue stream. At the time, it was to replace the revenue stream that we were losing for the parole office, if you recall. So even though we have officiants appointed, they cannot charge their own price. And I think in the report, I outlined that it goes by the price that is set by council by bylaw. The municipal, for example, one wedding would be the municipality retains $200 of the fee. $150 is paid to the officiant. If it's through the week and it's myself or the deputy clerk that does it during office hours, it's $200, not so that just the fee, the administration fee. So the officiant, if I do just a scenario, they would be paid $150 plus the mileage. The municipality retains $200. And then we retain the cost of the license. We encourage that if they use one of our officiants, that they purchase the license through us as well. That's an additional $125. And then the oversight is mine to be had. So if I was to leave employment or to come to council and ask that I no longer hold that designation, they would have to reapply to council to have that designation. So it's not Madawaska Valley's designation, it's the clerk's designation. And that's why the way that I established the contract, which I provided a copy of to council, is that after each marriage that is registered, I have the oversight to ensure that that gets mailed in. And as well as met with them, sent a letter to the registrar's office so that they know that it was appointed by resolution of council, and that and that we would be promoting that on our website. So I'm not sure if I got all of your questions, I think. Yeah, so the revenue, the oversight, and I think just more so again with the cross training and having availability. So that way there's 4 individuals, and there are times where there may be more than one wedding on one weekend. I know, for example, I'd received many calls from the Madawaska area now that they no longer had an officiant in South Algonquin. So the fact that someone from the Madawaska area had wanted that designation, I think, actually that is a service that we can provide as well. Did I get all of your questions?
If I may comment, Mayor Love, yes, no, I think you've answered my questions and some of the concerns I had, and it's all because of the workload that staff, including yourself, has, and are we putting ourselves in a position where we may not wish to go? But I would hope that if it becomes a problem, that it's brought to the attention of council. Everything like this needs to be reviewed after a length of time, just to make sure everything is working well and that we're putting the resources in the right place. So that's why I question it.
No,
and
for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Lubetsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one point of clarity. The marriage license fee is $125, but the municipality doesn't realize that full $125. We
That's
pay
correct.
$35 to the province for that license, which is a blank piece of paper. Thank you.
Okay. There's always, you have to pay the piper at some point, right? Okay, so if we've answered your question on that, I'll just ask one last time, are there any other errors or omissions on this set of minutes that council wanted to identify? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I've got a mover and a seconder, so I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Now, if we could circle back and Gwen, if you wouldn't mind reading the, oh wait, so Councillor Bromwich, we're going to do recommendation number 2. So Councillor Bromwich has departed from this part of the meeting because he's declared a conflict. And Gwen, if you could please read recommendation number 2 from Roads and Waste Management. Okay, you're muted, Gwen. I'm sorry. Did you read it all?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That the council and committee meeting minutes for June 1st, 2021 be approved with the following recommendation under Operations, Roads and Waste Management. That the entrance application 2021-25 meets the criteria and intent of bylaw 2014-139, section 5, in relation for an additional driveway for the purpose of access to the northern portion of land owned by Philip and Sandra Skibo, located in the vicinity of Wilner Road North, Lot 1, Concession 7, Sherwood Roll, number 026-020-11400 be approved.
Okay, Council, you've heard the recommendation. Number 2 has been read to you. Could I get a mover for recommendation number 2? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on that recommendation? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Bromwich, if you could rejoin us, please.
Thank you.
And thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the minutes?
None.
Okay, I'm seeing none. We'll move to municipal reports, and I'm hoping the operations manager is available.
Don't be forced.
Sorry? Okay. Our first municipal report is asbestos disposal guideline document. Hillary, Mr. Kuchkowski, did you want to speak to this?
Sure. Through you, Chair.
Yes.
Okay, so with the recent influx, I believe there's going to be lots of inquiries regarding asbestos. Excuse me, at our Barclay waste site. So in order to expedite business continuity and so everybody knows what they're doing, I developed that, well, with the help of Pension, I had them develop a guideline. It's all per our ECA at the waste site. And it gives you what is asbestos, how to handle it, what can contain asbestos, the hazards. And I must stress that we've recently did Zoom training in asbestos, the waste site attendants, a couple of us here, and the building department. So it's an eye opener. And we can accept this at the waste site if certain precautions are taken and guidelines as per the ECA. So the body of the report is self-explanatory. So I went to make this a living document. I created with Pension supporting information in Appendix 1, the last 3 pages. So staff, frontline staff can simply give this report to inquiries. Everybody knows what to do. They fill out the form. We do the checklist and we're good to go. So if you'll notice in the recommendation, our waste site is based on volumes. We don't have nothing else. Bigger waste sites have waste scales. We don't have that luxury. We're all volume based. In our C&D, everything is by the square meter, by the load. And it's been created through the years that way. So I have to think of some type of a fee, because this will be in the schedule of fees. So what I see in a neighboring municipality, a minimum handling fee of $150 plus tipping fees. If it's gets beyond that, what I think $150 would entail, we'd go to the exercise of volume based, length times width times height. So if somebody comes, I'll give you an example, a 10-meter dumpy bin or whatever, I would create a fee for that to the OPS. We have a loader there to excavate that big of a hole for 10 meters to include approximately 1.5 cover material over the top. And that would be what we would charge the individuals. So that's the only way I could hope to achieve what we need here. So request that you give us this leeway. I don't know how else to do this with that type of a fee structure. And then it should go. I didn't want to put the fee structure into this document because that could change. So it'll go into the schedule of fees. This is a document, then we're going to move this forward to a policy or a bylaw as soon as we can. But once this is passed, we have it here and we're good. If we have any inquiries, we know what to do. Just move right out the gate, give them the document. This is the fee. Bang, we're good. Any questions?
Okay, Councillor Poplinski.
Yeah, Hillary, what are we doing right now? Do we, if somebody shows up with a load of asbestos?
We haven't for a number of years.
Okay.
In the past, we handled it accordingly to the ECA.
Okay, the other question was, can you anticipate having some additional monitoring down the road? Like we've got test holes, right, test wells? Or would that be sufficient to pick up any abnormalities or anything of concern?
Asbestos is a compound that reoccurs like naturally. So asbestos doesn't let go once it's disturbed. It's the fibers that you have to worry about through your own body. So in the ground, it doesn't let no traces go of anything.
So if the ground is not disturbed, then it's not going to create a problem.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, Hillary, I had a couple of questions. I noticed in your fee structure, so if you're doing length times width times height, you're basically doing sort of a cubic meter.
Yep.
Or yeah, it's like a rate per cubic meter concept. When you're calculating this, I think it's super important that you also include in that calculation the fact that we have to place 50 inches of cover on top of, beside, around, whatever the area is. So if someone brings in 1 cubic meter, it's got to have 50 inches on top of it, beside it. Like you can't touch that area, right? That's what it says in the document. If somebody brings in 30 cubic meters, that becomes even bigger. So I'm just going to suggest that the cubic meters of cover need to be considered as well as part of the fee, because what you're doing is you're using that much landfill space, and we won't be able to compact it later on. We won't be able to add to it later on. This is a very separate kind of use from how we handle municipal household garbage, which we're able to compact, which we don't put anywhere near this level of cover on it. So I think it's important that we recognize that a lot of landfill space could be used up and permanently by any major asbestos contribution that was brought in. So I just want you to consider, is there a way to capture the cover that must be put on it? Because I noticed in the document it said you had to place 50 inches of cover on it. Is that something we could consider in the calculation?
Correct, but technically, I see where you're going. we have in our ECA where we can use cover material, i.e. Construction demolition waste that's ground up. So what we do is you put on 50, or I thought it was 1 meter of cover material, which consists of ground up C&D. So you're not losing any landfill space because it eventually has to go there anyway.
And we can definitely use that because it does risk puncturing the 6 mil plastic bags that it may arrive in. Like, and that would be the concern, right? If you puncture any of those bags, you could potentially have airborne asbestos particles.
Well, the process, it immediately put it in the cell and then you put cover material on there so it doesn't get airborne. So with the asbestos, I believe the mill bags are made more for transferring it, like in vehicles or in a dump, in a bin. So once it's in the ground, let's face it, it gets punctured, everything happens to it, but it's in the ground. It can become airborne.
Okay. All right. No, maybe just check with Pynchon to make sure. Yes, we can definitely cover it with C&D, and maybe you have. But if we need to factor in that, because like I say, once it's placed and covered, we don't get to compact it. We don't get that landfill space back in any way. It is untouchable. At least that's my understanding from what Pynchon has written. So if there needs to be some consideration of the additional landfill space that's used up by the additional cover, I want to make sure that the fee accurately reflects what it's costing the municipality to accept it, especially should we get a large amount of it from somewhere. That's important. And my other question was, will we be getting all of the personal protective equipment required that I noticed that Pynchon had identified in 4.3 of the report on page 35 for the landfill site attendant and the landfill? I assume that's the equipment operator, and possibly a spare set for the supervisor if necessary for them to be on site. And also, will we be giving training to those individuals on how to properly put on the protective equipment and take off the protective equipment, because potentially in the process they could be exposed to asbestos. So I have some concerns.
That's what we're striving for, correct?
So there will be training for our staff in protecting themselves and taking it off afterwards. Okay. And then the only other thing I noticed was, let's see if I can find it. On page 35 of the agenda, if you look at Pynchon's report, they had a duplication in their report. 4.3, which is what I was just referring to on the protective clothing, it's just it looks like somebody's copied the same bullet point and written it 2 different ways slightly, but it's the exact same thing. So just maybe if they would tidy that up. Gives you a bit of deja vu when you're reading it. Okay. Sure. Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. I just had one other point, and I don't want to complicate matters, but should we be looking at any extra funds that we're going to collect from this, from the asbestos? Should we isolate that and keep it separate, because we may have a whole lot of additional costs coming down because of that? When you're talking about equipment and safety issues and so on, is that something that should be given some consideration?
Well, you want me to?
Sure.
Well, I believe all revenue is captured in the revenue side of things on tipping fees at the waste site. So it's captured regardless in that one bracket. You know, it won't say asbestos specific, it'll say C&D tipping fees.
I think what Councillor Poplinski is maybe asking is, will the tipping fees capture that we may have to regularly purchase protective equipment, those additional costs? I'm trying to understand. I think that's where he's going.
That yes, that's part of my, absolutely, the question.
So Amanda, did you want to speak to that?
I just wanted to say we do have a landfill rehabilitation reserve. I thought that's what maybe Councillor Poplinski was getting to, if there's any sort of site requirements further down the road. So we do add into that reserve for purposes of unforeseen matters that might come down, if that helps him.
Okay, and Sue?
My interpretation of it, why we are coming to council with both a handling fee as well as a tipping fee, is the handling fee is the cost associated with accepting asbestos. So to me, that handling fee is what would go towards the rehabilitation reserve. The tipping fee covers the cost. So the actual hours of the operation, like it would still stay within the tipping fees. And that's why the handling fee would apply whether you bring 1 bag of asbestos or more than 1 bag of asbestos, and then the rest is calculated on top of that handling fee.
Currently, there is a separation of those two amounts.
Well, currently there isn't, and that's what we're coming to council with, to say
good,
asbestos
good.
should be treated differently.
Yes.
And so when we looked at different scenarios, we used the model that Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery was using.
Okay, so anything that's disposable for each use needs to be calculated into that tipping fee, for example. So disposable, oh God, what did it say here? Disposable coveralls, for example. We want to make sure that that's captured in the tipping fee, because that's going to be something that needs to be done to protect our employees. Anything that can be reused, you know, that's an investment in ensuring our employees are protected. But please make sure that those disposable items that are a one-off use for each asbestos entity brought into the landfill, each time asbestos is brought, that our tipping fee does cover those things, because this is fairly unique, and it's not really something that I think all the other users of the landfill should be subsidizing. Sue?
No, I think the handling fee is anything that is specific to asbestos. The tipping fee remains for just handling, for the calculation of the amount of waste, I think is right, Hillary? The tipping fee is the tipping fee. So the reason we wanted a handling fee is it's specific to asbestos. You will not pay a handling fee on top of tipping fee for any other product other than asbestos. So to me,
and the preparation fee.
That's right.
If there's a large amount.
Yes.
So there's three costs. Pre-fee,
all right. Yeah.
Tipping fee, and then the burial fee.
For larger amounts, yes.
Larger.
Okay, I'm just suggesting that we make sure that any disposable protective equipment is captured in the costs specific to asbestos, whichever one that is, and that you consider the need for exceptional amounts of cover, even though it may come from C&D. It's a loss of available landfill space, right? We don't normally cover with 50 inches, but this is what this says it's asking for. So I want to make sure that's captured, because every cubic meter that is taken up by asbestos and construction and demolition waste applied that thickly is another cubic meter that's not available to everyone else for ordinary household garbage that could be compacted. So it's kind of important. I'm looking to the future, because eventually we will have to do something in terms of replacing this landfill, expanding this landfill, or going in a different direction. Councillor Wilmer, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, I know I agree with you, Mayor Love. I think it's really important that we include the costs of that 50 inches of landfill. I mean, we're gonna, I mean, depending on what happens, but if we start getting a lot, as Hillary is suggesting may happen, come into the landfill, say we're going to really severely shorten our life span of that landfill site. And so it's important that we cover our costs and try to build up a little bit more of a reserve. And, you know, it's important that that's included. It's going to take up a lot more space than just the material.
Okay. Councillor Poplinski.
One more point, and I wondered, with the surrounding municipalities, will they all have made provisions to do what we're doing? Or can we anticipate they'll be knocking on our door wanting us to take this because we have made provisions? I see the CAO's got her hand up, so she's got the answer.
Just
Sue,
quick on that one.
I think we know the answer.
Yeah, Hillary and I have talked about that. I was asking if we needed to add any more details in the policy, but our ECA states that we only accept from residents of Madawaska Valley. Is that correct, Hillary?
Correct.
And we wanted to ensure that we have the right to refuse as well. So if there is a product that we are unsure of, we have a right to request a report identifying the type of asbestos so that it identifies how it needs to be handled. And the right to refuse to accept remains with the operations manager.
It's going to suggest that if we do make an exception, that we would charge more then because of the fact it's taking up room in the area.
I think we would be in trouble with the
Our
Ministry of the
ECA.
Environment because our
ECA.
ECA would be violated if we accept waste from
Yes.
anywhere else but
Okay.
Madawaska Valley. So that actually does protect us.
Good.
Okay. Any further questions from council? Any further discussion? Okay, so Hillary, we'll leave you to sort through what those fees and those little inclusion things will mean. They may have some impact on the final fee schedule that you produce for this. I'm wondering, Gwen, could you read the recommendation for us, please?
That council accept the asbestos disposal guideline for Bark Lake Waste Site as information, and this be incorporated into a policy bylaw, and that the fee structure for disposal of asbestos be incorporated in the schedule of fees as follows. A minimum handling fee is set at $150. Large excavations will be quoted independently based on estimated volumes and equipment requirements for the excavation and burial, length times width times height, plus equipment and required based on Ontario Provincial Standard Specifications, OPSS, schedule of rental rates for construction equipment, plus tipping fee as per construction demolition fee structure for Bark Lake Waste Disposal Site.
Okay, could I, so with what I've said to you, Hillary, this recommendation still applies. You'll just make those adjustments in how you make that calculation, right?
Correct. This
Oh.
applies, right? Yep.
Okay, no, I figured it still worked just fine. So could I get a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Okay, can't see Councillor Poplinski, but I'm hoping he can hear me. Okay, seeing no oh, you were there for a second. Okay, was there any
All in favor?
discussion?
Nope.
Okay, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, everyone. All right, our next municipal report is 9.2, Craig Kelly additional entrance. And Hillary, you're on the hot seat again.
Okay, so we have another request for a second entrance. This is on Farmer Road on land zoned by Craig and Jude Kelly. Everyone's familiar with this site. And the second entrance, he has moved it to between the church and the hall. If you see on the site plan, it's right where that ramp is. I don't know what page.
50.
So 50, yeah. So it meets the criteria and intent of the bylaw for entranceways, the vision requirement, and second entrance. There isn't much of a slope. It can be achieved, and it meets that bylaw intent. So then a recommendation is written into the report. Any
Okay.
further questions?
All right, any questions from council for Hillary on his report? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Gwen, would you read the recommendation, please?
That the entrance application 2021-27 meets the criteria and intent of bylaw 2014-139, section 5, in relation to an additional driveway for the purpose of access to 1048A and 1048B Mill Street, land owned by Craig and Jude Kelly, located in the vicinity of Mill Street, Lot 6, 7 Concession 5, Radcliffe, roll number 02403026001.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? I think this was actually where one of the neighbors suggested that there may be a second entrance, so we'll probably make that neighbor happy. If there's no further discussion on the recommendation, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, our next item, 9.3, is a request for approval of municipal logo report, and this is from our treasurer, Amanda. Amanda, would you like to speak to your report?
Yes, so now that we have our new financial software up and running, we have the ability and the capability of making some minor changes to our billing, the look, the aesthetics of our billing. The municipality currently has two approved logos, the egg-shaped logo and then the recreational Madawaska Valley logo. Within our interim bill, we did send out the interim bill on plain white paper, and we did receive some feedback about it. Staff within the finance department had many discussions, and we think that it would be nice going into the final billing for 2021, now that we are all prepped and ready to go, that we update the look of our tax and our utility billing. And we are requesting council grant us approval to use the recreationally designed Madawaska Valley logo. There is no guiding document on approved logos of when to use them, where to use them. There has been discussion within the communications subcommittee on preparing a guiding document, but that will be, excuse me, in the future coming. And as we are preparing this summer to get the tax billing out early, we would require approval ASAP. So the recreational logo did not have the Corporation of the Madawaska Valley, Township of Madawaska Valley on it. So I just requested that our graphic designer just update it slightly on the bottom so that if we are not able to print with our name on it, it's there attached. So I just updated it, and I've attached that for you so you can understand what I'm talking about when I say the recreational one. And yes, so I am requesting council approval. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Amanda? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. We just dealt with that at the last meeting of the committee, and there was some discussion about adding some color into it, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just wondering, I was hoping it was my understanding that someone was coming back with some more ideas. I'm just wondering if because we're going to be, this is going to then apply to all of our signage, I think, because we talked about uniformity and having the same message on everything. And I understand that. I think that's exactly where we should be going. And I understand the time restraints here because you're trying to get it into the next billing. I'm just wondering if we're pushing it ahead too fast without a little more. I would have thought we were going to have a little more discussion about this, and because it's not just that, but it's going to be probably there's to be a substantial cost if we're changing a lot of the letterhead and various things. I would like to look at that whole cost involved before we start putting it onto something that we may end up changing. That's my opinion on it. So I'm just wondering if we'd be wise to have some further discussion and more input to see where we're going with this, because it is a change. but there's cost involved for sure, and extra stress on staff right now to get this also done. So I don't, Councillor Wilmer may want to, he will, I'm sure, want to comment, and he was at the meeting, and
Okay, sorry. Suddenly my cat has decided to feel better and be active to add to my day. I'm glad she's feeling better, but it's a bit challenging. Okay, so the electronic package, the electronic agenda has this in color, and it's in the same colors as the signage in the council chambers. So when your printed packages come, they're just done in black and white, but it is in the greens and the blues, exactly like you see the signage in the council chambers, because I have the electronic package up in front of me. So I don't know why there'd be a question of color, because I'm assuming that's the colors that we're looking at. Amanda?
Yeah, there's no cost because we're able to do it ourselves, upload it into the system. And it is an approved logo, the Madawaska Valley one, and then the egg shape. So right now, our logo on the tax bills, the current tax bills and water bills, is the egg shape. We're just requesting approval to use the Madawaska Valley one. We just think it would sort of jazz them up and make it look a little bit nicer aesthetically speaking. And then if the subcommittee has any changes to logos or whatnot later, we can deal with that within the proposals or whatever, but we're just requesting approval to use the currently approved logo. That's all.
Okay. Sue? Sorry.
So I just want to clarify, because that was one of the questions we had to bring this to council. So right now we already have, you have a bylaw using Ms. Kennedy. So she merely added the words underneath the existing logo with no change, correct, Amanda?
Correct.
Just so that council could view what it was. That would just be imported into your taxation, then sent for the bill printing. The reason you're hoping to have it now is that you would order, usually when we order tax bills, it's for the interim and the final, as well as water and wastewater. So it would be for right now, the July 2021 billing and the March 2022 billing, as well as the 2021 water wastewater, 2022 March wastewater. At whatever time, if there's a change in logo, a change in direction, you just import that change into the accounting software. I want to make sure that I'm interpreting that correctly.
That's correct. And when we order our paper, we do it in bulk purchase so that we can get some discounts. So it was my understanding that council will be taking a break in July, and the deputy treasurer is hoping to be working on tax billing in July rather than in August, because we're a little bit ahead of the game now. So that's the
that will
reason.
Change.
Yeah, I know, knock on wood, I'm jinxing us. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Yeah, I have no objections to this. I think it's needed just because of the timing. But it's interesting that this type of thing has to come to council in the first place. And that's why we were discussing this at the meeting Councillor Poplinski has alluded to. I mean, if we have a proper policy in place, then these sort of things regarding our logos, our signage, this sort of thing, these sort of things don't need to happen. And so I understand with the timing, we need to get this done, but the goal, or one of the goals of our subcommittee or that we're looking at, is to try to develop some type of policy that sets out how our logos and where our logos are used. And I've seen in other municipalities how they're developed, and then this sort of request doesn't even have to come here, because it would be a policy saying this is what you use. And I think that's really what we're looking at. But, given the timing, and I sort of like the look of this going out, that's fine. But I hope by the next time we have to do something like this, we are able to have a policy in place to, so we don't need to go through this.
Okay, thank you. I know certainly when I was looking at it, I think the print on the one on page 55, the sample, is too big. But the print on the one on page 56, where it is the smaller print that fits under the Madawaska Valley recreational logo, there's not a battle for what I see first. I see Madawaska Valley and my eye naturally goes down to the smaller print. Like it flows with the stream down to the smaller print. So I really like that one. And I think that would be certainly the one I would encourage you to use. I know I can let council know that as mayor, I make my own letterhead. I've had the egg on it for a long time. There's a problem with the egg. It does not like to print. Unless you save it as a PDF, it prints bigger than the space it's in. I don't know what's wrong with the graphic, but it's a pain. So I switched to using this one on my mayor's office letterhead. And that's really funny to say the mayor's office because I am the mayor's office. There's nobody else. But I switched to this because I didn't have that problem. So if I happen to share a document in Word, I don't end up with a logo that prints too big. So, but you know, I just prefer this one because it's easier to fit on letterhead, for example. But I think from the perspective of what Councillor Poplinski has suggested, certainly we wouldn't be throwing out any paper. We would use up whatever stocks we have of say letterhead or anything that had say the egg shaped one if we were moving to this Madawaska Valley recreation one, and it would be on new orders that we would look to making those changes. And I think that's what Amanda is sort of suggesting at this point. She's going to make an order. She'd like to have approval. Any members of council, any other members want to weigh in on this? Perhaps I could get Gwen to read the recommendation.
Councillor Bromwich had his hand.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Bromwich, you've got your backlit and sometimes I don't see. There we go, I can see that. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, page 56 is my choice also. It doesn't take up as much room as the other one. And I think with headers like this, you don't want to take up a humongous amount of room where we can eliminate the text underneath. So I would agree with you. Page 56 would be my choice.
Okay. Does anyone object to page 56? Is that our choice? Okay, so I think council's saying yes. If we were choosing of the two samples we were given, we would choose the one with the smaller print underneath. Then maybe I would ask Gwen to read the recommendation to us.
That council approves the treasurer and deputy treasurer's request to use the Madawaska Valley recreational logo as amended to include the corporation of the township of on the municipal tax and wastewater bills as proposed.
Okay, as amended, how about, because it's actually including the corporation of the township of Madawaska Valley. That's what it says on page 56. That's what's been added. So how do you want me to do this, Sue? Do we fix the recommendation slightly?
Yeah, we can just add where it's in parentheses to include the corporation of the township of, we'll add Madawaska Valley.
Okay. All right, so council, with that addition to the recommendation, could I get a mover? Can I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, exciting, Amanda. Can't wait to see those new tax bills.
Thank you, council.
All right, 9.4 compliance officer report. I think this one is Sue's. I forgot to write down whose it was. Sue, did you want to speak to this? Okay, Sue you are on mute.
I just realized I was muted, sorry.
It's okay.
So I will pull that up. This is a report that is also being presented in Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards. This came from quite a few staff meetings and discussions with planning the CBO, bylaw enforcement, as well as operations. And we've brought to council's attention through the building reports, as well as the bylaw reports, the amount of non-compliance that is increasing, the amount of complaints that are increasing. And the complaints are specifically, and the non-compliance are specifically in areas of greatest concern is trailers popping up everywhere along the waterfront. Some vacant lots are now bringing multiple trailers. We're getting complaints of trailer parks being created, gray water in proximity of shorelines, sea containers being used as sheds without permits, requests to bring temporary sea containers to move becoming permanent, sea containers in residential areas, sea containers on commercial lots, whereas they're allowed a certain amount are exceeding those amounts, as well as some of them it's exceeding the lot coverage for the size of their lot. Bunkies, gazebos, boathouses on the water, not meeting setbacks or having permits, and garages where they used to be a garage are now being used for residential purposes for habitation. And if you deem, and then illegal dumping, we at the last few council meetings, we've had quite a few concerns about following through with some illegal dumping, investigating a fee structure and messaging to meet both the municipality's need to address this increase in garbage throughout our municipality. So basically, if you deem this might be of interest, we'd like to propose a contract position on a trial basis. Whereas Madawaska Valley, due to our geography and size, would propose 3 days a week, whereas Killaloe would try 2 days a week. And so we'd be able to apply for a full-time position between the two municipalities, entering into an agreement that this municipality has entered into before for similar contracts that you've done with KHR or other municipalities, same as years back, you shared, I think, a bylaw enforcement officer, and you've shared other positions as well. So it would come by agreement, by bylaw to council for that purpose. So I'm not sure, I don't see, I see Silas is on as well, if you had any questions. I did not include, I don't see Corwin on the call, but I did, this is the report that's coming from their collective concerns. And I just thought I would bring it to council, seeing as our issues are growing daily. And if we're not going to be having any other meetings until August, we wanted to ensure that we were maybe moving forward with this with council approval. If council deems there is a role for this type of position on a trial basis.
Okay, so Sue, the goal here is to free up some of the time of our building department, building and planning. Is that the idea? Because I know they're trying to address these complaints.
It's building as well as bylaw. Yes.
Okay.
We are getting complaints, so they go out to address the complaint. There's a timeline associated with that complaint. When you go out to the complaint, they complain about the complainant. The applicant will complain about somebody across the river that has another issue that needs to be investigated as well. So you have to follow up on that timeline as well. But I think if you read through the report, I want to be clear. And I think we want to emphasize that this is not being brought forward as something that we're going out to try to find assessment. That is not the purpose of this. It's not to have somebody driving around. This is to address the backlog of complaints that we have. This is to be able to comprehensively have a report come back to council saying, these are the areas of greatest concern. You're all aware that we have to review our zoning bylaw. There may be some wording changes that need to happen. We're hoping that this compliance position would be bringing forward not just the assistance to deal with the backlog, but bring forward some recommendations how we will educate, how we will, what changes can be done to bylaws. If there's a review of a fee structure that needs to happen, if there's greater non-compliance in an area, maybe that's where council needs to say, and I know it was brought up before about illegal dumping, that we just, you know, have higher fines. And maybe it's signage, so that it's really hard to say. I think we need that global view of where the greatest concern is. And seeing as this individual would be working for 2 municipalities that are adjacent, I think we will see common denominators. And so we share on cost, we share on the drafting of different fines, drafting of policy, maybe shared promotion of our area. And so that's what we're hoping that it would do. But I want to be clear that staff is not looking at this as let's just get somebody to go out there to say what everybody's not doing correctly. We have told council the influx of building permits that we are doing. Along with that influx of new permits are new residents. And there are many assumptions that as soon as you see trees, that the same legislations and regulations do not apply here. And I think it's just that, you know, it's just that whole way of us saying, you know, we're here to educate. We're not there to put the fines, but if we have those consistent non-compliance, then we need somebody to follow through with that. So I think I've kind of went around in circle there, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Sue, I noticed in the recommendation, there's no term of months that are recommended. Did you have something in mind?
Well, I've left it blank because I'm speaking here on behalf of those, like those 3 departments. I don't know if they want to weigh in at all. But to me, like a 6-month term would suffice at this point for us to identify it, but I need a 3-month commitment. Mm-hmm. You know, especially if you're going for someone that would be looking at compliance from the beginning of the complaint to if we have to take it to court at this point.
Okay, so a minimum of 3 months, you're looking at 6 months. Let's see who is here. Mr. Lerbetsky, if you're available, did you want to weigh in on this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the CAO has covered most of the points, but there are other additional components to this. When the building inspector or the violent enforcement officer do go out on other calls, they're observing other infractions. I was just informed of one visit to another location, and lo and behold, there was a whole cottage that has been constructed without a building permit. So like Sue said, people come up to the woods, they think they can do what they please. And now with the explosion of real estate transaction, we're getting a lot of new people into the area. They don't check first before construction. Staff has always said, we're here to answer your questions. Please call. We are more than happy to help you out to say, yes, you need a permit. No, you don't need a permit. The other thing that I think is happening with this trailer situation, not only in our municipality, but neighboring municipalities and Renfrew County, is that the price of having some kind of a cottage or a retreat is unreachable. And a trailer seems to be the exit that, oh, we'll just pop up a trailer and we can come up for the weekend and we're happy to go. And in the meantime, the municipality is still getting the wear and tear on the municipal infrastructure. Yes, there is some taxation that is being collected, I guess, on trailers, but it isn't to the extent that if it was a permanent structure. So I think we're right now, with Gwen and the bylaw enforcement officer and the building inspector, they're trying to come up with a one-page message that doesn't talk about waste sites or whatever. It'll be strictly about bunkies, about trailers, and what you need to do. Sea containers especially, those are everywhere now. And the thing is that even with the bunkies, they're a situation whereby people think, oh, it's just a little cabin, we can have that, but it does require a building permit. So you just can't pop them anywhere, or you have to be in a specific zone to allow them. Monkeys require a minimum of 2 acres in size. So there are all of these factors, and as I say, the CBO and the bylaw enforcement officer have been in touch with all these other municipalities. And I think Township of Greater Madawaska Valley, maybe last year or whatever, or maybe previous years, the building inspector and one of the employees, they drive around the municipality. They know what they've issued a building permit for and what hasn't been. So they target those people, not target, but go and send out a letter and say, look, you need a building permit. You're in non-compliance. So the time has come. If we just don't want sporadic kind of free-for-all development happening in our municipality, the compliance officer would be a good start. And as I say, with the trailers, they're the big issue and the sea containers right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The bylaw enforcement officer isn't available, I take it. I don't see him on here. I don't see Ms. Corwin, Mr. Quad. Sue?
Did you want Gwen to see, he is in the office, see if he wants to maybe.
Okay, I just wondered if he wanted to speak to this, or if he feels that the report covers it, then that's fine. He may be busy with something else. Okay, so are there any questions at this point from council?
Mayor Love, I don't know if you can hear me. I
can hear you, yes.
I just lost my page here. It's disappeared. Obviously, I'm still on, but if I could just take a second, I think it's very timely. I think we should be doing this and do it right now. I think it's long overdue. I think we've got issues, not just with the trailers, but we've got some more bylaws coming down that dealing with Airbnbs. I think that's going to be our next biggest problem if we're not prepared for this. I think that our staff right now are stretched, and I really do feel that if you get the right person in the job, they'll clean it up very quickly and keep a good watch on things. I think we really need to get moving on this, and the fact that we can share the cost and hire somebody full time on a part time. It's a term position, contract position, but it allows somebody to have a full-time employment. So I think that's very important too. So I would support the initiative.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Poplinski. Councillor Wilmer.
Yes, I too support this fully. I think it's absolutely necessary. We've got to, we're becoming the Wild West out here. There's things happening everywhere. You just look around and around every corner, there's something going up or something that shouldn't be happening. And so I think this is very timely and very necessary. And I would support giving it at least 6 months. I think, and my main reason for that is I think we'll get better quality candidates than going with a shorter period of time. And I think that's important in this type of position. My only other concern is this is also contingent on KHR approving it. What would happen if they did not approve it? Would we still be able to proceed in some manner? Because I think this is something that's almost necessary with or without them.
Okay, thank you. Sue?
I would propose that if council approves this resolution, we would still advertise for 3 days a week. The 3 days a week was the way I came up with that was we have a bylaw our bylaw officer has many hats, CMC as well as fire chief. So looking at what is logged on the timesheets, it's usually between 15 and 18 hours in bylaw. It's obvious that we need about 40 hours of bylaw. So this trial period of, having that 28 hours or whatever it is, 24 hours we would still ask that Madawaska Valley still do 3 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And the reason, if I may, Mayor Love, add as well. So I think if KHR was to say that, possibly maybe council did not agree with that, there would be other adjacent municipalities that have approached me since saying that they are definitely having the same impact. But the reason we did approach KHR is because we both have the same software. Both of our CBOs use City Reporter. We now have changed our accounting software to be iCity Vadim, and that is what KHR uses. So the individual that would be working for both municipalities is not dealing with different softwares.
I think that's important. It's enough to learn one package. To have to deal with two would be challenging. Okay, so council in general, do we agree to put a term of 6 months into the recommendation?
Yes.
That's before you, okay? And certainly we could revisit that. I mean, with what's going on, the person could be busy for 9 months. But let's okay, so Gwen, if you wouldn't mind inputting under the term 6 months, and what I'll do is I'll ask that Gwen read the recommendation. It's a fairly lengthy one.
Whereas both Madawaska Valley Township and Killaloe Haggerty Richards have seen a large increase in building permits, rezoning requests, and general inquiries. And whereas both municipalities have been dealing with non-compliance and daily complaints about zoning and municipal bylaw contraventions, specifically dealing with trailers, shipping containers, bunkies, and building without permits. Therefore, be it resolved that council supports staff recommendation to hire on a contract term basis a compliance officer to be shared by Killaloe Haggerty Richards and Madawaska Valley Townships, and that council directs staff to draft an intermunicipal agreement with Killaloe Haggerty Richards to hire a compliance officer for a total of 40 hours a week, 24 hours in Madawaska Valley and 16 hours in Killaloe Haggerty and Richards for the term of 6 months, and that council authorizes the CAO clerk and chief building official of each respective municipality and the manager of planning, development, and licensing from Madawaska Valley Township to form the hiring committee with authority to advertise and hire a successful candidate for the contract position to be approved by bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a mover for the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any discussion on that recommendation? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, fantastic. Sue, how soon will that hiring happen? Are we waiting? Are we sort of in sync in terms of our council meetings with KHR?
Well, I think that's why within the resolution, we've already identified who would be on the hiring committee so that we could proceed with drafting that job description and hiring for that position.
Okay. All right, fantastic, because obviously the sooner the better.
The contract for that individual is what would be coming back by bylaw.
Okay, council, then we will see that contract, I'm hoping shortly. All right, we'll move on then to 9.5, which is Ontario Clean Water Agency Performance Report for January to March of 2021. Welcome, Ashley, and you are going to get to introduce me to Kaylee, because I actually texted Gwen and said, who's Kaylee?
Yes, I was saving it for this meeting. Thank you for having us. Yeah, so Scott Stewart took another job with the process optimization team a few weeks ago. He's still available to us if we need. He's still working from home, but so I'd like to introduce you to Kaylee Saar. She has worked for Aqua for 6 years, 4 as an operator in Petawawa, and 2 as a PCT in Seaway Valley.
Okay, welcome, Kaylee. It's nice to have you here. Don't be surprised if we put you on the spot and ask you some strange questions about operations. Does happen. Typically it's me, but actually I think today she's getting off easily, Ashley, because I don't have a question on specifics of operations. I don't know. It was a failing.
Oh.
Anyways, did you want to take us, is Kaylee going to take us through the report, or will you?
No, I will.
Okay.
I was really hoping you had a bunch of questions today, because this is
Sorry.
Kaylee's first council meeting ever. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then I'm letting her off easy, and next time, look out.
Appreciated, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Ashley, if you'd like to take us through this report.
I will. This is the standard template that we always send out. So I don't know if anybody has any highlight or like anything to ask right off the start. I'm not going to go through it word for word, but I'll kind of paraphrase or summarize. Everything under the water and wastewater compliance excellence is all green, all good. We did have a few objective exceedances earlier in the colder months, which have all been alleviated, as we've spoke of before. These aren't uncommon, but they are an objective exceedance, not a parameter exceedance. So then there's flows, work orders completed, capital replacements that were completed at the water and wastewater systems. We have distribution and collection maintenance, which highlight the water main break, a hydrant that was damaged, hydrant inspection and preventative maintenance, spring flushing, customer complaints. And Appendix A carries us through all of the parameters that we sample for and the frequencies they're sampled on for both water and wastewater. And of course, the favorite one at the end, which is Appendix B, the cost plus report. So just to highlight, chemicals and services were slightly higher at Barry's Bay Water over the first quarter. Sorry, just bear with me here for a second. They were slightly over at Barry's Bay Water simply because we ordered 2 skids of soda ash as opposed to 1 in the first quarter, which I had budgeted for 1 in the first quarter. And also the services were slightly higher just because the annual flow meter calibrations were completed in March. And then moving on to 5979, which is Barry's Bay Water Pollution Control Plant. Salaries were a little bit higher, but we did complete a bunch of the annual routine maintenance at the sewage plant over the winter in the heat as opposed to out in the cold when we do most of our water is normally in the summer months. Chemicals were high, but it was just simply because we use our Pass 8, similar to what Amanda was saying with the paper. We bulk ship it with, we piggyback with Cobden, water and wastewater, as well as Killaloe. So we get it at a better rate if we're able to do it that way. So it does show an unfavorable number there, but it's simply because of just the calendarization that I had it budgeted for in Q2. So that will come back. And supplies and services were marginally over, just a touch, and that's just simply because lab costs have went up a little bit in 2021.
Okay.
So
Thank you. There we are. All right. Does council have any questions on the report? Let's do the report and then the cost plus. Does council have any questions on the report? No, I'm just looking. Okay. I can see Councillor Bromwich. I've lost Councillor Wilmer. Okay. Any questions on the report? Anyone? Okay. Ashley, the only thing I had on the report was I was going to beg that someone please make the y-axis on the flows a little bigger.
got that, Kaylee?
Got it.
Purely because the smaller the axis, everything looks flat. And so when we're looking at the drinking water flows and we're looking at the wastewater treatment flows, a small axis makes us look like nothing's happening. And if we could just make them a little bigger, then at least it'll impart a little more sense of information to us. Being visual, that was something, I mean, I can sit and look at the numbers, but it's just easier. It is, if that's okay, just
Certainly.
tug your graph taller. Thank you. Did anyone else have anything on the report? Okay, nothing on the report. How about the cost plus? Any questions on the cost plus from, now where? Oh, there she is. There's the CAO. Okay, good. I thought I'd lost her for a minute. We kept losing people in the meeting this morning, so internet is iffy today. Any questions on the cost plus? Okay, wow. Gee, you are getting off super easy today. Okay, so I'm going to hold you to it that hopefully you can pull back some of the numbers back into a line, and we'll be a little closer to 0 on both of these as you move through second quarter. Sue, oh, you have a question?
Yeah, more just a comment if Ashley could forward staff Scott's new email so that we can send him a congratulations and a thank you from council for what he has done.
Yes.
That'd be great.
And call him a traitor. He left us. However, welcome, Kaylee. All right, I guess, this is a super easy day because there don't seem to be any questions, any major questions other than me poking on y-axes, which is nothing. But thank you both for coming and for being ready to explain whatever may crop up for council and need an explanation. And I look forward to seeing you guys next month. No, the month after next month. We are taking July off, so it'll be August when we next hear from Aqua. Okay, so have a good summer.
Okay, you too. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay, thank you
Nice,
both.
Ashley. Kaylee.
And
Okay,
it's
take
nice to
care.
meet you, Kaylee. Take care.
You
We'll
too.
see you again. All right. Okay, so that completes 9.5. We are moving
I asked for
into.
resolutions on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
That's all right.
sorry. I'm done. See, I'm done for the day. I can't check out like that. Could you read the recommendation, Gwen?
That the Ontario Clean Water Agency performance report of the reporting period of January 2021 to March 2021 be accepted as presented.
Okay, can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Gwen. Thank you for keeping me on track. We will now move into bylaws. First bylaw is bylaw 2021-56, which is regarding a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment of part of Lot 15, Concession 10, Geographic Township of Radcliffe from Tourist Commercial TC to Rural RU, 2150384 Ontario Incorporated, ALI-2021-06. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-56, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley as amended, be given first and second reading this 15th day of June 2021. Could I get a mover, please? Okay, can I get a mover for the bylaw? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on this bylaw? Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Given the letter that we received or that Sue sent us just prior to the meeting, I mean, I think that's a very, very valid point. And I think you, Mayor Love, were questioning why it couldn't go to R1. And perhaps this is why they don't want it going to R1. And when I look at it and I see the clear cutting is allowed under this zoning, I really, really have a problem. And so I'm not going to support this.
Okay. Thank you. And unfortunately, I missed this letter. I did not get back to the Zoom when this letter was mentioned, and I haven't seen it. So it's difficult for me to speak to the letter, therefore, but what we could do, Council, I might suggest what we could do is, and I'll have to check with Mr. Larbetsky on this, can we give this bylaw first and second reading and then ask for the zoning to be changed to R1 from RU? Is that a possibility, Mr. Larbetsky?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it is possible to just give it first and second reading. Thereby, you haven't actually made a decision on it. And I think for the benefit of the applicant and our planner, they need to be informed because they're not present at this meeting. So they aren't aware of this email that was received between meetings. So in fairness to all parties or people concerned, I think that would be the prudent thing to do.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm glad that that is an option that's open to us because otherwise we do have to renumber everything. Councillor Wilmer.
A question for Silas. Silas, which would be easier though, to do first and second reading and then hold off on the third, or do no readings today? Which would you recommend?
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Mhm.
I would say that give it the first and second reading because we have the numbering system, so we don't drop the number and we don't have to renumber the other bylaws in the package. And as I say, then that gives the opportunity to Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Horwath to discuss this amendment because they're the ones that prepared the documentation for the municipality. And I know it was mentioned at the meeting that it would move forward when I presented the draft bylaws, and it was stated that yes, it would be rezoned from tourist commercial to rural. So I don't want to give any false perception to the applicant or to our planner. So first and second reading, and then put it on pause until they either amend the bylaw, which can be done. That's the whole purpose of it, and then pick it up at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense to me.
Okay, so in order for council to express that they would prefer that it would be an R1 zone, not an RU zone, will we need a recommendation from council expressing that basically? So we can do first and second reading of this bylaw, and then would we do a recommendation to them that that's what we're looking for?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would say not just a recommendation, it would be in the form of a resolution that this is
Okay.
what was decided at the meeting, that that is what council's preference is, because a change was made from the public meeting, and I don't know whether section, I think it's 3417, whether that applies or whether it has to be brought back to another public meeting to be reconsidered because of all the parties that were involved. So that's something that Mr. Horwath would have to guide council on.
Okay, so can I ask that staff formulate, I don't know whether you should formulate that resolution or whether the CAO should, but I need someone to formulate that resolution. I want to make sure it's properly formulated. Sue, did you
Yeah, I
want
would
to?
think whatever wording that Silas thinks should be had so that the county understands what it is that we're requesting. So I think
Okay.
my resolution would just say, whereas council has passed first and second reading of bylaw to amend bylaw 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley as amended, council requests further requests prior to the third reading and whatever it is that Silas feels needs to go in there.
Okay, so I recognize that we are sort of in a section of our agenda where it's a lot of planning stuff. So I'm going to suggest, council, that we do first and second reading, and then we take a break, a little break to allow staff to, yes, it's like mines. We'll take a little break to allow staff to, well, now I'm confused.
Sorry, Kim.
Oh, don't give the reading just yet?
Yes, I would suggest that we take a break first.
And then do the reading. Okay,
Yes, please.
I'm trying to read one text at a time here. Okay,
Yeah.
so what we're going to do, if you don't mind, we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back to this, and that will allow some time for staff to formulate some wording on this. I think that's important that you're able to consult with each other and you can bring back a resolution. So can I get someone to move that we take a break? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. And how long do you think you need? Would that be a 10-minute one, Sue?
No, 5
Just
minutes.
5?
Yep.
Okay, so.
Oh, Silas, did you have something you want to add?
I think we should have 10 minutes, and it
Okay.
might be prudent for us to discuss it with Mr. Horwath, that we are doing the right thing.
Okay.
Okay, so can we break until 3 o'clock? That gives you a few minutes extra. Okay, so that we'll take a break until 3 o'clock. All those in favor? And that's carried.
I
Okay,
will just
thank
say
you.
that the live stream will continue. So
Okay,
I will
so-
shut your video and mute yourself, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Gwen. And back at 3. I'm envious of Counselor Wilmer. Looks nice out there.
It's beautiful. It's, I mean, if you're in the shade though, it's cold. It's
Mhm.
a strong north wind, but it's nice, beautiful right now. I
It-
had to put sunscreen on the top of my head.
Sunscreen and a jacket at the same time, eh?
Anyway, no, it's really nice. I mean, that's one of the benefits of Zoom. Although there are distractions all the time, and the reason I turned my camera off, or have been doing so, was I was down to 11% battery, but
Ooh.
I've plugged it in on a long extension, and I'm now up to 17%, so should be good.
Okay. Okay. Counselor Bromwich, have you come back? I see the CAO is here. I don't see Counselor Bromwich. Oh, okay, good. No, just checking to make sure you're here. Okay, so I think I have everybody I need. I guess we will call the meeting back to order. Now, do you want me to do first and second reading and then do this resolution, or did you want to do this resolution before first and second reading?
Well, possibly if you wanted us to, I think Silas can speak to, we tried to contact the County of Renfrew. We left a message for Mr. Horwath. We did get in touch with Mr. Whitehead. So maybe Silas can, because it may change whether or not you want to hold off on the third reading.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we had started to compose a resolution for council. And as I say, my concern was because this was happening outside of the meeting as it had been closed, that we may need to pass a resolution to the effect that no further public consultation is required. And Mr. Whitehead, just as we were finishing up, confirm that Mayor Love, you had requested the other lots be rezoned to residential 1. He didn't have any objection to it being designated as a residential 1 designation, but he did further comment that the municipality has no tree cutting bylaw and has nothing really to do with the zoning aspect of it, because it is a triangular piece of property. So by the time you develop that property, there is not that much vegetation probably that will remain, but he was quite okay with it just being rezoned from tourist commercial to residential 1. So I think, so what we need to do for council is to pass a resolution under section 3417 saying that no, subsequent to the public meeting, there is no requirement for further consultation with the public, that the amendment to the bylaw will be from TC to residential 1, and that you could give it all 3 readings today and enact the bylaw.
Okay. So then do you have the text you could someone read a resolution about, I'm sorry, about 34.1 or whatever it was that we need to do first about not giving any further notice? Sue?
If Silas can just get that section, I can just include it in the back of this resolution.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone, but it certainly, does council have any concerns with doing that? It seemed to be the desire of those who attended the public meeting that it would be an R1 as opposed to an RU. So if we are making that change today, I think we're conforming with what we heard this morning. And it was also at least what I requested that they look at for the rest of the lots. So are there any concerns with changing to R1 from RU? I'm just making sure I can see. I don't see anything from council on that. So we'll just, poor Mr. Lurbetsky, we'll give him a moment to gather the section that he just referred to.
And I just wanted to again confirm what Mr. Whitehead had said, that regardless if it's RU or R1, the same amount that would need to be cut in order to have a house there would be, there is no difference in what would be preserved as it pertains to trees. And he reiterated that we don't have a tree bylaw.
Yes.
I can't lay my hands on the resolution very quickly, but we did pass that same resolution at the Kelly meeting. Would somebody have that quickly? Gwen, would you be able to find that?
The minutes of that meeting would have it in it.
Yes, it should.
Oh. Let's see.
Do we recall the date of that meeting?
June or
May 4th.
Yes.
Definitely May 4th. So it would have come to, let's see if it's in the regular council meeting of May 18th, the minutes. Okay.
Can I read the one that we have at that meeting?
Please.
Silas?
Please.
That pursuant to section 34, 17 of the Planning Act, Council has determined that no further public notice is required in respect to changes that were made to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the public meeting of which was recessed and reconvened. So we don't need that part of it.
Oh,
Is that
so
correct?
for the public meeting of June 15th, because we have to adapt it to what we're about to do.
That's correct.
Okay, so Gwen, I'm sorry, could you read that one more time and insert June 15th at the end?
That pursuant to section 34, 17 of the Planning Act, Council has determined that no further public notice is required in respect to changes that were made to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment after the public meeting of June 15th, 2021.
Okay, could I get a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none. All those in favor? Okay, and that's carried. So as we proceed into bylaw 2021-56, it will be as amended to amend RU to R1. So with that, I will reread it. Bylaw 2021-56 regarding the site-specific zoning bylaw amendment of part of Lot 15, Concession 10, Geographic Township of Radcliffe from Tourist Commercial TC to Rural 1. R1.
Residential.
Oh, sorry, Residential 1. I apologize. R1. Let me just 2150-384 Ontario Incorporated, ALI-2021-06. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-56, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley as amended, be given first and second reading this 15th day of June 2021 as amended, and it will be amended to change the zoning to residential 1 as opposed to rural. Could I get a mover, please? Oh, wait, Mr. Lerbetsky, did I miss something?
You had called the vote and you had Councillor
Bromwich and Wilmer.
Wilmer already, so just go back to them to see if they're okay with that amendment.
Okay, thank you. Are both of you okay? Good. Is there any discussion on that change to the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-56 be given third and final reading this 15th day of June 2021 as amended. Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on this amended bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Whew. Hopefully we got all that correct. And I'm sure Gwen will be just adjusting that bylaw for when I sign it. It'll say residential 1. Thank you. All right, we'll move on Bylaw 2021-57 regarding a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment of part of Lot 33, Concession 1, and part of the shoreline road allowance along Kaministkeg, designated as Part 13 on Reference Plan 49R-7145, Geographic Township of Sherwood, from Tourist Commercial, TC, to Limited Service Residential, LSR. Mark Ian Zurikowski, ZUR-2021-07. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-57, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley, as amended, be given first and second reading this 15th day of June 2021. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-57 be given third and final reading this 15th day of June 2021. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, public meeting and planning matters. Severance application, owner applicant Chepesky Henry B. Estate, Lisa Chepesky Estate trustee, parts of lots 22 and 23, concession 13, in the geographic township of Sherwood, now in the township of Madawaska Valley, in the county of Renfrew. B24-21 nil times 21.9 hectares or 54 acre lot addition. Location of lot to be added to is 751 Chepesky Mill Drive, Barry's Bay, Ontario. Mr. Lerbetsky, did you want to speak to this? We're just being asked to comment, I assume.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a straightforward application. It is a large addition of a back forested lot from the Chepesky estate to the property that fronts on 751 Chepesky Mill Drive. There are no concerns with the proposal and the approval of the severance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council on this proposal? Any questions, discussion? Okay, everyone feels it's fairly straightforward. Gwen, could you read the recommendation?
That council approves severance application B24/21 as a bush lot addition.
Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, our next one is severance, another severance application. Owner applicant Hassanville Community Association, parts of lots 17, 28, and 19, concession 7. Was that supposed to be 18? 17, 18, and 19? It was? Okay.
Yes,
they don't usually jump like that. So, okay, let me just fix that. Parts of lot 17, 18, and 19, concession 7 in the geographic township of Radcliffe, now in the township of Madawaska Valley in the county of Renfrew. B63-20 bracket 1 bracket, 76.2 meters by 76.2 meters, 0.586 hectares or 1.43 acres. B64-20 bracket 2 bracket, 76.2 meters times 76.2 meters, 0.586 hectares or 1.43 acres. Location 782 Stanley Olszewski Road, RR2, Barry's Bay, Ontario. Mr. Lerbetsky, did you want to speak to this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, these are two new lots that are being created off of the Hassanville Community Association property. Because the proximity of the first lot, which is on a fairly sharp curve, Mr. Kuczkowski realized that there may not be conformity with our entrance bylaw, 2014-139, if I recall the number correctly. Thereby, there was a site visit by Mr. Kuczkowski and Mr. Jamal Pongini. So recommendation that came back in the report from Mr. Kuczkowski was that if the lots are reconfigured, they should be able to meet the requirements of the entrance bylaw. So the recommendation, I believe, that came forth from Mr. Kuczkowski was that approval would be recommended to the granting of these severances, but then it is up to the land division to ensure that the lots are reconfigured to meet the criteria of bylaw 2014-139. And I see Mr. Kuczkowski is there. If he wishes to add anything to that, please do so. Thank you.
Okay.
Through your chair, yes, I believe that this isn't very complicated for the proponent. They have to elongate the frontage on Stanoszewski Road from 76.2 meters. They have to make it a little bit longer, and then they can bring it down a little bit to, they can still, I believe, reconfigure it. We need 275 feet according to our bylaw for entrances. So they would have to make it longer on 76.2 frontage on, and that's the first one on the corner. Then the second one would be adjusted, but the second one has a lot of vision clearance. So it's just the first one closer to the corner. They can reconfigure. I believe that you can reconfigure it 10% or something. I don't know what the county rules are without any harm in the application.
Okay. All right. Does council have any questions for our staff on this application? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Then Gwen, could you read, I take it the recommendation is already taken into account the reconfiguration that's being requested. Okay, so we can just read the, if Gwen could read the recommendation, please.
That council approves severance application B63/20-1 and B64/20-2 for rural residential purposes, provided that application B63/20-1 is reconfigured as to lot frontage from 76.2 meters, 250 feet to comply with the minimum site vision distance requirements of 275 feet pursuant to bylaw 2014-139.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on this recommendation? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, our next item is a memo from the Manager of Planning, Development and Licensing dated June 11th, 2021 regarding shoreline road allowance closure application on Stony Lake. Again, Mr. Lubetsky, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Once again, a similar situation has been before council. There's an application pending for the acquisition of shoreline road allowance by Mr. and Mrs. Norris on Stony Lake. The abutting property on the east side is owned by J. Bayless Services Inc., I believe is the name, and the municipality's road allowance leading into Stony Lake is the other abutting property. So thereby, the application is to go along the northern limit of the road allowance as the boundary limit, and pursuant to our bylaw 2013-38, council is required to consent to that property line, and that is really all that is required. So there is no contentious issue about this. Municipality is still maintaining its access to Stony Lake. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Maybe Gwen, just read the recommendation.
The council approve of the boundary limit as a straight line projection of the road allowance boundary and hereby authorize the execution of the required Schedule C by the mayor and CAO clerk.
Okay, great. Can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on that recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, 12.4. This is the item that we got the extra document you received, I think, by email. Letter from Bradley Law dated June 8th, 2021 regarding properties of Larry B. Stampkowski, known municipally as 19179 to 19207 Highway 60, being parts of lots 188 and 189, Range B North, Geographic Township of Sherwood. Did you want to speak to this, Mr. Larbetsky?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, to give a history or synopsis of this scenario, this is the former land that was owned by the municipality and was intended as an industrial park area and was subsequently sold to Mr. Stampkowski. The request is that the site plan agreement that is registered against this property has become redundant as there is no longer a veterinary clinic being operated from that location. And as everyone knows, there is the trailer building that is located on that property, which is going to be relocated shortly, or there is the request for that. Thereby, the first part of this request is to have that site plan agreement made redundant. And so what Mr. Howe is asking if council would approve the removal of that site plan agreement from the title, and he would register that on title. And then the second request, this is where it was changed. I had some concerns and I didn't get confirmation prior to the printing of the agenda, but I did have discussion with Mr. Howe about the documentation referred. And I also did consult with our municipal solicitor because I had some concern about the removal of the bylaw itself, because that's the authority that gives the municipalities sell the surplus land to Mr. Stampkowski. And the response from the municipal solicitor was that really it wasn't an issue. You don't always have to register the notice on title, but it is better because otherwise down the road, anyone who's searching the title would be requisitioning that where did the municipality get the authority to sell this to Mr. Stampkowski. So the request was a little bit, as you can see, Mr. Howe's handwritten fax note. It was a mix-up, and I have highlighted what the request is that is being removed from the title, and it is the covenant. It referred to in the agreement of purchase and sale that if Mr. Stampkowski didn't develop that property within a time frame, that the municipality had the right to, I think it was buy the lands back, but that isn't the case because Mr. Stampkowski sold part of that property to Welk Electric. It is already developed. So once again, that covenant has become redundant. So it's just the removal of that covenant that is being sought. So I have changed the wording briefly in that second part of the amendment. So should I present that wording now or when you go to the recommendation? What's your preference?
Okay, so maybe could, do you have the first part of the recommendation in front of you as well?
Yes, I do.
Could you maybe read us the recommendation with the change, and I'll get a mover and a seconder on that, and then we'll discuss it.
Okay, so the first part of the recommendation is that the municipality has no objections to the request made by Robert B. Howe of the firm of Bradley Law Professional Corporation, pursuant to letter dated June the 8th, 2021, to an application by the township to delete the site plan agreement in brackets Ernest McKay and Sharon Mullen relating to the former veterinary clinic bracket, and hereby authorize the mayor and the CAO clerk to execute the form of acknowledgement and direction. So there's no changes to that. And the amendment, the second part, I will read, and that the municipality does not object to an application by Larry B. Stampkowski to delete the covenant contained in the notice of bylaw number 2015-14, registered against the title of the lands known municipally as 19179-19207 Highway 60, relating to development of the property as Welk Electric has already been developed.
Okay, so council, you've heard the recommendation. Could I get a mover for that recommendation as amended? Would I say as amended, Mr. Lubetsky? Okay, thank you. Could I get a mover for that recommendation as Mr. Lubetsky amended it? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Or on this, sorry, on this recommendation? Had a word stuck in my head there. I'm not seeing any, so I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. All right, so that gets us through, I think, all of our, are we through all our planning matters? Oh, I think we are. Whew. Okay, Mr. Lubetsky, you can finally go back to all your very busy work that I know you have to do. Thank you very much. Correspondence and information items. Oh, I got emails popping in while I'm talking. Sorry, I don't normally have that open. So 13.1, email from OPP MPB Financial Services Unit of the OPP dated May 31st, 2021, read January to March 2021 detachment revenues. Any comments or discussion from council on this one, this piece of information? Councillor Wilmer.
Yes, Mayor Love, I'm just wondering why we have our $984 applied to an outstanding invoice.
Okay, does that mean it's applied to a future invoice? Because I think they come monthly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I think we pay our bills on time, so I'm just surprised that they listed it as an outstanding invoice.
I wonder if the treasurer has got an ear to us. Amanda? There she is.
So I'm just trying to pull up what you're looking at, but we do not have an outstanding invoice. So as credits come to us, then they will notify us. It's usually quarterly, or they give us notification of credits for different reasons, whether it be prisoner transportation or year-end financial reconciliations. Then they will provide it to us. I'm trying to pull this up so I can see.
It's page 149, sorry, page 149 of the agenda.
Detachment revenues. Yeah, see, I get something different than what this is, but it's essentially the same thing. Revenue credits. I would suspect that it is probably with regards to our prisoner transportation grant that we receive. They notify us that we will get a credit for the year if we don't have any rate payers within our catchment area that they've required policing services for transportation from the courthouses and back and forth. So if we don't use up the annual allotment, then they give us a credit in the following year. So I suspect that's what this is for.
Okay, thank you. Just wondering, just funny wording.
Yes, Sue, did you want to speak to that?
Well, I just had more question. I know that credits under the policing model for the other portion of our policing costs, we actually have to apply to get our credit. Is this the same thing, Amanda? Like, do we have to like formally apply for the credit like we do with the policing?
The item we've got in front of us says, we have been advised by OSS a call to, and then there's a number given, is required to apply the credit to an outstanding invoice. So believe it or not, we have to call to get the credit that we're actually owed.
It's different branches of the services, right? So they invoice us monthly, and then if we have a credit, we just call them and say, can you put it? It's more of a financial management type of thing. We ask them, to put it to this month's invoice or next month's invoice, whatever. So not a big deal.
Okay, so Amanda, you will be making that call.
Yes, this isn't new. It's been ongoing for many, 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 many years. Yeah.
Okay. Just another one of those things you don't know about how things work, right? where you would expect a credit would be automatically applied, and here staff has to ask for it. Please, sir, can I have my credit? Okay, so we'll receive that as information and be confident that our treasurer will be asking for our credit and getting it applied. Our next item is an email from AMO Communications dated June 3rd, 2021 regarding Blue Box regulations released. Any comments or discussion from council on this item? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. I was just, I see that there was a webinar for June the 9th, which was last week, wondering if any staff were able to have an opportunity to be part of that.
Okay, I think Mr. Kachkowski has left us. Sue, were you aware?
Yes, it was forwarded to Public Works, the operations manager and supervisor. I cannot confirm if they were able to sit in on that one at all, but I will double check with him.
Okay. I'm sure there will be more.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely, as they finally start to move this file forward.
They, if I
ahead,
may, Mayor Lev, I
please.
noticed they mentioned that they'd be posting the new regulations online so soon. So I guess that's what we'll see next. And just there may be something that we need to do some major adjustments or planning or whatever, even though it is a couple of years away, we need to think about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In terms of equipment and so on.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, we will leave it to staff then to bring us
Good.
that information.
Sure.
Okay. All right, and we'll just accept this item as information as well. Under correspondence action items, 14.1 is a resolution from the Corporation of the Towns of Perth. I didn't know there were more than one. Is it one town of Perth or is it towns? Maybe it is the towns of Perth. I don't know. No, it says town of Perth. Okay, sorry. I think there's an extra S in there. Resolution from the Corporation of the Town of Perth dated April 30th, 2021. Isn't it funny when you read the darn thing and you don't pick up on that stuff till you say it out loud? And it's regarding provincial hospital funding of major capital equipment. Does council have any desire to send a letter of support for this resolution? Councillor Wilmer.
Yes, I would support the Town of Perth's resolution. I think it's important, but I do want to make sure this is actually coming from Fort Erie asking that we support the Town of Perth's resolution.
Okay, the Town of Perth one, it comes right after that. So I think they've sent us the one they're asking us to support.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so would you so move that we send a letter of support for, I guess, the Town of Perth? We might as well go with the original one that Fort Erie was supporting.
Okay, I agree. Yes, I will move.
Okay, moved by Councillor Wilmer. Do I have a seconder for a letter of support there? Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion? I think it would be wonderful if a little more of the capital expenditures that are in our hospital were being covered provincially. They are responsible for healthcare, and the fundraising that has to go on in our community to provide capital equipment at our hospital means that, with a small rural population base, other things that would be fundraised for in our community, it does draw resources from those items. So it would be very helpful to know that our hospital was properly funded with asset management and capital equipment being taken care of by the province, who is responsible for healthcare. There, that's my rant on that. No one else want? I think I'm getting a nod. Yes, I think we agree. Anyways, can I call the vote? All those in favor of a letter of support? And that's carried. All right, our final resolution is from the Town of Kingsville, dated March 25th, 2021, re Bill C-21. Does council have any desire to support this, or shall we file this one? Am I getting a sense we'd prefer to file it? All right. Okay, so if we could please just file that one. Sue, do we have any new business or unfinished business?
I think Amanda was going to just add something under unfinished business.
Okay, Amanda.
Hello. So the province and the federal government announced today the release and approval of the COVID resiliency stream under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. This was a program that was had sort of allotment of $100,000 guaranteed for municipalities. But we did have to apply, which was brought to council at the beginning of the year of what we would apply for, what capital projects would be used for this money. So we have been awarded $100,000, and this will be used in order for us to replace 2 dehumidifier units on the ice surface, and also the main lobby to repair any missing flooring and match it all up at the Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center. So this is an 80-20 split between the federal government and the provincial government. There is no requirement for the municipality to provide any funds for this grant program. So we are very thankful to the federal government and the provincial governments to recognize the need for capital programming for COVID resiliency. And we will hopefully be looking at developing a tender over the summer so that we can get started in the fall to winter. The money has to be spent by December of 2022. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amanda. That's good news. It's nice that we're able to announce that today. That's one of those really great things that we are doing at our last council meeting before the summer. Councillor Poplinski. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Thanks, Amanda. Just wondering, is there a deadline to submit the request?
So this application was presented to council at the beginning of the year and it was submitted. So today they announced the approvals.
Excellent.
So we will be receiving the money and a funding agreement will be forthcoming. And we are approved to proceed with the tendering program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we will get an agreement that we will be approving by bylaw from
Certainly.
the other levels of government. Well,
Yes.
it's much appreciated. Every little bit helps towards the work that needs to be done at our 40-year-old arena, and we do appreciate this. All right, Sue, is there other unfinished business?
Actually, yes, I was just receiving the text as you were receiving that report from the treasurer. If you recall, I came to council with the need to digitize our water and wastewater services. We have old maps of our servicing area. We talked about, we have a meeting that will be scheduled to speak about what areas could be expanded as it pertains to the boundaries. And we provided council with an update that staff had a presentation from a company, CGIS, Municipal CGIS and Data Integration, that are out of Perth. He just sent me a quote that they could do that for us. We had requested that they also include, as a layer to the map, the new meters that were recently installed, including the size of the meter, the location of the meter, and we could update whenever there's repairs or issues with those meters, or when there are meters added that could go on that layer as well. CGIS offers a module for different departments. Because we haven't budgeted for that and we have not come to council with that, I asked them to price individually just for this service, and we would look at possibly expanding on that module in the new budgeting year. So the price that I have is under $2,000 at this point. He's hoping to come in at approximately $1,500, but I would propose that if council sees the validity in doing this, that council approve the CEO clerk recommendation to retain CGIS, municipal GIS, and data integration at a cost of up to $2,000 to provide the services to digitize the mapping, of the water and sanitary data, which will also include the new water meter data, including but not limited to the locations and size of meters.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a mover for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Actually, Councillor Schulist and I sat in on that meeting, him as chair of water and wastewater, and it was amazing. The potential of what we would be able to capture through mapping and the many different ways that there were services that we could expand on. And I think it's very important that we bring, that they do a presentation for all of council so that you're aware of what those potentials are. This was something, though, this one particular project is something that it would be very good to get done. We are relying at this point on paper mapping of our water and wastewater collection and distribution systems. That would be reversed, the distribution and collection systems for water and wastewater. Yeah, I think it's very good that we could get this done, but we do need to have a presentation to council so that you can see the potential of what the kinds of services they can offer quite cost effectively to small rural municipalities. Is there any Councillor Schulist, did you want to speak to that? I'm sure you recall.
Yes, I do recall. I think it's going to be a great tool. I know some of the staff says, well, where was it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Anything that we can do to improve, helping out staff with, with reports and just identifying if there's any problems or whatever, it's all going to be in front of you. I really think that all of council needs to see this presentation and then they can see what we saw, but it is definitely going to be beneficial for the municipality. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Sue, could you make arrangements in the fall for a presentation on the sort of expanded possibilities that we saw in that meeting to be done for council? Because now, I got a mover and a seconder. I guess are you, before I call the vote, do you want to speak to us? Okay, Sue.
Yes, I just wanted to add that he felt that as soon as there was approval, it would only take him a couple of weeks to possibly prepare that data. So Aqua would then have a look at it. So I'm pretty confident that we could have something for the August 3rd Council and Committee meeting.
To look at the actual data.
Look at the actual data. And by then I have forwarded him our original maps from the cemetery, from the Methodist Church, and he feels confident because I've digitized all of that information in spreadsheets as to who is plotted where and the names with Chris's help, that he could very easily also digitize all of those maps that we have. And I think that would be crucial to get that done. So I would ask him for a price at that time as well, that we probably based on budget would do it in 2022, but he'd be able to show us samples of other municipalities that have digitized their cemeteries.
Okay, so if you can make arrangements for them to provide council with that presentation, I think it's super important, because Councillor Schulist and I saw a lot of potential in things that weren't going to take years to do. They were going to take mere weeks to do, and they were going to be super helpful to our staff. Councillor Bromwich, did you want to speak? Oh, okay, sorry. I thought I saw some. It was the dancing pen. I apologize. Amanda.
I just wanted to also state they have been able to use data that we had from many, many years ago from a program that Sue had set up quite some time ago. So we were lucky that we kept that data, and they're going to be able to use it to be able to plot out some, culverts and signage and stuff like that we had kept. So although a program that we stopped using previously, we're still able to convert it into this new program, which is like amazing that's even possible nowadays, because most software doesn't speak to each other. The format that the data was kept in is able to be uploaded. So it was money that was not lost back then, because it is going to be useful for us in the future now.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for reminding me of that, Amanda. So that was when we first started the asset management under the KISS program, and it was a handheld unit. So at that time, when we were tracking culverts and catch basins, we were entering into that system the latitude and longitude of each of those assets. And when he asked the question during that meeting, Amanda went back through the old information and found those Excel sheets, where they're actually like an Access database. And I think he got back to us within the day and said, yeah, look, it looks great. You have lots of information.
So this is fantastic. So this, I think, is exactly why we would like council to see the whole presentation, because there was so much potential opened up before our eyes in that conversation with them and in what they showed us that we could do with data and information that we've already invested in as a municipality. And then we'll be able to get some good bang for a few extra dollars to get this digitized and in a way that it's all ready for the future. So, okay, I've got a mover and a seconder. I guess I need to call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, we have an in-camera session. The recommendation is that the meeting enter in-camera session to discuss matters pertaining to the security of the property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, Section 239, 2A, B, C, and F. Number 1 is the council and committee meeting minutes in camera of June 1st, 2021. Number 2 is Wishart Law Firm update re court file number CV-21-00000002-0000. And number 3 is Lakewoods Resort update. And it says tentative. Sue, is there a Lakewoods Resort update?
No, there is not.
Okay, so we will go with just 1 and 2 then, if that's okay, and we'll just remove Lakewoods Resort update tentative. And with that, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, Gwen, if you could stop the live stream and let me know when we are in camera.